Mr. Bob Hughes, President of the American Fisheries Society, Pam Sponholz, President of the Western Division of the American Fisheries Society, Mr. Felipe Amezcua, President of the Mexico Chapter of the American Fisheries Society, other members of the Planning Committee, fellow invited speakers, students, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Maslow's hierarchy of needs attempted to explain the motivations for all human beings. He proposed that all humans must fulfill their basic physiological needs for air, food, and water, sex, sleep, homeostasis, and excretion. As these needs are met, man then desires safety, then love, and a sense of belonging, esteem, and then self-actualization. Embodied in these motivations is the need to advance, progress, develop, and make things better. Small island developing states cry to have their basic needs met. However, those needs are not just simply satisfied, but there is a desire to have more. The desire for a change in their state of being, their environment, and their social well-being. As the level of education and an awareness of international processes come to the fore, society demands economic development. As mankind's history progressed, and with increasing populations, it has been necessary to have the institution of government to ensure efficiency in our organization as a people, nation, and a global village. It is widely accepted that government is responsible as the primary organizer of large-scale projects such as infrastructure, like roads, telecommunications, water and sewage, and energy utilities. Government is also seen as, one, the protector of human rights for persons to have access to food, water, shelter, health care, education, and social security. And two, the steward to defend all other forms of life. So when society begins to demand economic development, it is the government who is expected to respond. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, constant development is the law of life, and a man who always tries to maintain his dogmas in order to appear consistent drives himself into a false position. So the government adapts. It devises ways to respond to meet the demands of its people and maintain in their favor. Oftentimes, the demand outweighs the supply. Some governments see that taking care of the needs of the people is far more important than saving the renewable natural resources. Many governments see economic development as the means to provide the basic needs of their citizenry. Other governments are of the view that adhering to environmental policies would impede economic progress and possibly destabilize their political strongholds. However, the expectation of responsible governance is to ensure that the demand should result in the sustainable and responsible use of the supply. So the responsible government looks at economic development that will ensure the sustainable use of the environment so that the natural resources can be preserved for the future generations. Governments have different ways in which they respond to the request of their people. For the most part, when there is a cry for economic development, governments of developing countries are seen to set relevant policies and legislation, to look for opportunities to better the state of its people, to encourage foreign investment, to bolster and buffer the economy, and exercise fiscal prudence. Using the Bahamas as a case study, we can begin to appreciate these responses. The Bahamas has an economic policy where the government of the Bahamas is committed to building an economic environment in which free enterprise can flourish, where the government assumes its proper role as a regulator and facilitator of economic development, where the ideals of transparency, fair play, and equality of treatment are paramount, and a policy that maintains a stable society in which all people are afforded the opportunity to realize their maximum potential. In this regard, the national investment policy of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is designed to support an investment-friendly climate, guarantees the complementary of Bahamian and overseas, fosters appropriate linkages with all sectors of the economy, in particular the tourism and financial service sectors, encourages the exploitation of our natural resources in an environmentally sound and sustainable manner, provides for the maximum level of employment, guarantees an acceptable level of economic security, and generally fosters the economic growth and development of the Bahamas. Tourism is the greatest driver of economic development in the Bahamas. It caters to 1.5 million stopover visitors and 3.5 million cruise visitors annually. Tourism accounts for 50% of Bahamian employment. In 1993 alone, $1.3 billion was spent in the country, which supports some 45,000 persons. Tourism not only provides jobs, but it provides foreign exchange. This foreign exchange allows the government to pay for 1, importation of food and other goods, 2, foreign debt, 3, the salaries of public servants, 4, infrastructural works and services such as roads and schools, construction, communications, parks and green areas, and hospital equipment. Tourism contributes to 60% of the country's gross domestic product, so the government focuses a great deal of its attention and emphasis to develop the tourism industry. The Bahamas made some recent noteworthy investments, like that of Atlantis on Paradise Island. Most of the Atlantis development spanned over 2 phases during the period of 1994 through 1998. Some $800 million was spent to erect the legend of the lost city of Atlantis that had an accommodation capacity of 2,317 rooms. This mega resort possesses one of the world's largest open-air marine environment of 11 million gallons. In these waters are 200 species of 50,000 sea creatures. The development has lagoons, waterfalls, a Mayan temple waterslide, and 6 swimming areas. There is also a $15 million marina that caters to international mega yachts. In 1998, Atlantis commenced its Phase 3 stage of development to add the following: 600 additional rooms, 497 key condo hotel known as the Cove Atlantis, 14-acre dolphin habitat and education center called the Reef Atlantis, a 63-acre addition to the waterscape, and 3,000 square feet of flagship Mandara Spa, and 100,000 square feet of conference facilities. This resulted in a total of 500,000 square feet of indoor and outdoor space, making Atlantis the owner of the biggest conference space in the Caribbean. Atlantis provided the boost in the economy that the Bahamas needed during some difficult economic times. It has contributed some $2.5 billion to the country, provided 8,000 full-time jobs for Bahamians, and contributes 15 to 20% of the country's GDP. The resort continues to be a major contributor to the country's growth. It is the largest private sector employer and the second largest employer next to the Bahamas government. This is not all. The Bahamas expects to see more economic growth with the completed construction of the Bahamian Riviera, Bahama, which is scheduled to host its grand opening on the 8th of December of this year. The resort, a collection of hospitality names such as Mandarin, the Rosewood Collection, and the Grand Hyatt, will aim to set a new standard in the resort industry. With the largest casino and convention center in the region, a Jack Nicklaus signature golf course, an 8-hectare beach and pool area, this $3.5 billion resort boasts of being the Caribbean's largest single-phase hospitality investment in history and the largest development project in the Western Hemisphere. Financed by the Export-Import Bank of China, Bahama will cover over 400 hectares of land with a beachfront of 1 kilometer. Bahama is earmarked to create a total of some 8,000 permanent jobs for Bahamians and will contribute to $1 billion to the local economy. It is projected that the Bahamian Riviera will contribute $11.2 billion, or 10%, over a 20-year period to the Bahamian economy. Bahamians have already begun to feel the benefits of this new development. Local businesses have the opportunity to tender bids and have been afforded contracts up to $120 million for construction projects. Further, residents living in the community along the Cable Beach Strip are enjoying the modernization and diversion of West Bay Street, which is a major thoroughfare on the island of New Providence. With the redirection of this road came the relocation of 3 banks, a fire station, a police station, and a nature wetland preserve that affords public access via beautiful walking trails and parks. Bahama has also established a job skills training program for all interested. Those individuals completing the program will receive employment at the mega resort. Both Atlantis and Bahama have opportunities open for condo beachfront ownership. The well-named brands and steady returns on investment of such projects give foreign investors more compelling reasons to purchase real estate in the Bahamas. Additionally, these potential owners will receive the perks and privileges afforded to paying guests of the resorts. To bolster and buffer the economy, new strategies have been implemented in the Ministry of Tourism. An internet television channel is being tested that provides information on the Bahamas 24 hours a day. There will be more focus on sports and religious tourism. And just recently, the NBA's Miami Heat held 2-day training camp in the Imperial Ballroom at the Atlantis Conference Center, October 1st through 4th of last year. And the Pure Silk LPGA Golf Classic was held in January of this year. With the additional rooms of the Atlantis and Bahama developments and focus on the new tourism initiatives, the Bahamas has seen the need to bolster its airlift. Before this could be realized, it was important to have a gateway that could accommodate the projected numbers of visitors to our shores. Therefore, the Bahamas government saw the need to give the Lynden Pindling International Airport a facelift that would welcome our guests and leave a lasting impression the moment they arrive to the last seconds of their memorable vacation. The Lynden Pindling International Airport is named after the first Prime Minister of the Bahamas. The LPIA expansion project was executed at a cost of $410 million as a 3-phase development over a 2-year period and was completed on time and on budget. It is the largest airport in the Bahamas and is the 4th busiest airport in the Caribbean. The airport was expanded by some 24%, and it involved the construction of a domestic and international departure terminal and a domestic arrival terminal. The airport now has a carrying capacity of 5 million passengers and possesses 10 aircraft bridges and 30 aircraft ground loading positions for high capacity and better passenger and airline handling. Serving as the main gateway to New Providence, Paradise Island and the Family Islands, it offers scheduled and charter flights to the United States, Canada, Europe, and Latin America. The Nassau Airport Development Company is a Bahamian owned by the government, is a company owned by the government of the Bahamas and operated and managed by Vantage Group on a 30-year lease. This project also had an impact on our economy, where 75% of its workers are Bahamians, and most of the works conducted on the project was handled by Bahamian contractors and workers. Now, the LPIA features culture, beauty, and hospitality, and stands as the first and lasting impression persons have of the Bahamas. Most recently, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie announced an expansion to the Albany project, located on the southwestern end of the island of New Providence, to the tune of approximately $140 million. Albany is a luxury community created by the Tavistock Group and golfers Tiger Woods and Ernie Els, which opened in October 2010. The property sits on over 500 acres of beachfront property with 600 residential and hotel units, an 18-hole golf course, a world-class mega yacht marina, fitness center, spa facilities, equestrian center, tennis courts, and beachside club. The expansion will see the property grow with the addition of a medical center and hospital with a helipad, a financial center, a sports academy with boarding accommodations, and 50 Albany Marina residences. This expansion is projected to provide Bahamians with 1,000 jobs during the construction phase and 300 permanent jobs. In addition to this, the Prime Minister, in a recent address to Parliament, also noted the multiple projects in various stages of development throughout the Bahamian archipelago. Included were a development in scale from resorts and large hotels to boutique hotels and lodges. As the government responds to the cry for economic development, it must now balance its role as protector of human rights and provider of opportunity with its stewardship to defend all other forms of life. The balance is indeed a sensitive one that is filled with negotiations as to how best to protect the environment while responding to the economic needs of the people. How government responds to this delicate balance oftentimes causes a challenge for conservationists. So then, what are the challenges facing conservation when society demands economic development? The challenges facing conservation lies with how the government views the environment. Does it have an environmental ethic? Does it consider itself an environmental steward or just a protector of the rights of the people, or both? So responsible governments find ways to respond with some guiding principles, policies, legislation, and an intuitive appreciation of the environment to reasonably protect it for future generations. The government's ethic on environmental matters will determine how it will view and respond to conservation efforts in the key areas of protection of habitats, biodiversity, energy, sustainable fisheries, and forestry. Habitat conservation is one of the most important issues facing the environment. With increasing populations and human activity that leads to erosion, deforestation, biodiversity loss and extinction, and loss of topsoil, wild species are finding less and less land to call home. This has implications for migratory species, since they usually inhabit more than one habitat. Loss of habitats lead to conservation challenges in the terrestrial and marine environments. Landscapes may be converted to roads, agricultural land, residential and commercial areas. Real estate developments near coastal waters may contaminate the ocean with chemicals, pesticides, or even motor oil. Wetlands may be dredged or filled in to accommodate such projects. Buildings or land that may be dynamited could destroy numerous ecosystems. Dredging ship channels can lead to the destruction of seagrass beds and other habitats that serve as food, home, and breeding grounds of some marine species. Sediment from the dredged area may be resuspended in the water. Further, dredged material may oftentimes be dumped in wetlands and prove damaging to such ecosystems. Whilst policymakers may devise means to protect habitats via marine protected areas and reserves, land use and management plans, zoning and monitoring and reporting which will sustain economic development and protect habitats, fishing communities may resist marine protected areas, since they may feel that these areas have always been traditional fishing grounds. Accurate utility maps of telecommunication, water, and electricity lines may not be accurately available to produce land use zoning plans that are palatable to communities. Monitoring the progress of such habitats may also be difficult due to lack of manpower. Deforestation brings up the issue of climate change. We often think of climate change as affecting humans, but the challenge must be taken to think more about how the plants and animals will be affected during global warming events. One of the challenges facing our countries is to ensure that investors remain socially responsible and become environmental stewards of the environment to maintain habitats. Biodiversity, or biological diversity, is defined by the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity as the variability among living organisms from all sources, including, amongst other things, terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are a part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. Whilst biodiversity is a very important economic tool in that it contributes to 1, tourism and recreation through beaches, forests, parks, and ecotourism, 2, food resources through agriculture, cattle, fish, and seafood, 3, biomedical research through species from coral reefs that have pharmaceutical value for human health and curing diseases, and 4, industry through cosmetics, textiles, and building materials. Biodiversity also has inherent values that contribute to each of our country's beauty and individuality. It serves as an identifying mark of some of our cultural and spiritual heritages. Besides, all animals and plant life have the right to live on planet Earth. When mega resorts such as Atlantis and Bahama are built on large acreage of land, there is grave concern that there is a threat to the conservation of the biodiversity of the proposed areas. Some of these areas possess wetlands, sensitive coastlines, pine forests, and are sometimes well-known bird sanctuaries. Comprehensive land use zoning plans, environmental impact assessments, and management plans go a long way as fine tools to mitigate possible devastating effects. However, it is the ethic of the government that decides whether or not to proceed with a development that economically benefits a country immensely, but may cripple the birthright of its people to possess the land. In relation to energy, to conserve energy, we understand that it is important to reduce our energy demands, improve energy efficiency, reuse, and recycle. Efforts have even been made to find alternative and sustainable energy sources whilst restoring energy conservation practices. In a society where there is much technological advancement, conservation of energy sometimes becomes more and more difficult to accomplish. It becomes challenging when its citizens may demand and consume more and more energy. Computers, television, and office lights are commonly run 24 hours of the day. People do not wish to walk or use a bicycle to get to their destination, but must use a car to get there in the fastest possible time. Since economic growth, job creation, and a better life for all Bahamians were high priorities on the government's agenda, the Bahamas was compelled to reform the energy sector with the following objectives. 1, to provide affordable energy supplies to consumers that will meet long-term growth demands for energy. 2, to increase international competitiveness in production in order to promote economic development and job creation. 3, to utilize economically viable renewable energy sources to promote environmental sustainability. 4, to provide long-term energy security to producers and consumers. 5, to increase Bahamians' awareness of the need to have energy security by appreciating the importance of energy, its use and conservation methods in their daily lives. 6, to increase energy efficiency. 7, to provide modern and expanded energy infrastructure. 8, to create a regulatory framework that promotes transparency, investment, competition, efficiency, and public-private partnerships. 9, to foster sufficient flexibility that adopts and adapts to new energy technologies. 10, to establish an institutional framework with high levels of technical capacity to support and facilitate the implementation of policy by all stakeholders. And 11, to provide investment and business opportunities with spin-off benefits to other sectors. Our vision for the Bahamas energy sector is to achieve a modern, diversified, and efficient energy sector providing Bahamians with affordable energy supplies and long-term energy security towards enhancing international competitiveness and sustainable prosperity. To assist the government with its reformation exercise, a National Energy Task Force was established to advise the government on how to best reduce the country's high electricity costs and carbon footprint. From their recommendations, the government decided to take a number of concrete steps to reform the energy sector. During the budgetary process of 2013-2014, the government eliminated tariffs on inverters for solar panels, as well as LED appliances and bulbs, to ensure that these energy-saving devices were accessible by the majority of our citizens. Another reformation step was imprinted in the Bahamian economy when the Bahamas government announced its decision to strongly promote renewable energy. The goal, 30% renewable energy by 2030, was advanced by the Prime Minister. The government will be assiduously working toward having 10% of the current energy sector generating capacity come from renewable energy through a residential energy self-generation program during the 2014 year. The government got an excellent head start in the promotion of renewable energy with the assistance of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Global Environment Facility, GEF. 2 renewable energy pilot projects were devised to collect data on renewable energy technologies. The first project was for the installation of solar water heaters, and the second project for the installation of photovoltaic systems in Bahamian homes. The data received from the 60 solar water heaters and the 6 photovoltaic systems in homes confirms that Bahamians will be able to benefit from the cost savings of these environmentally friendly devices. With respect to sustainable fisheries, overfishing is by far the greatest challenge to the conservation of sustainable fisheries. Approximately 32% of the world's fish is overexploited, recovering or just depleted. This threatens the economy, livelihoods, and health of communities. In the Bahamas, there is a strong local market for the spiny lobster, the Nassau grouper, and the queen conch. Spiny lobster or crawfish is an important food source for grouper, loggerhead turtles, sharks, and man. These species are reef cleaners and help to keep coral reefs healthy. The Bahamas crawfish resource is the fourth largest in the world. In 2011, approximately $66.3 million of crawfish was harvested from Bahamian waters, which represented 85% of $78 million of fisheries in that year. To protect this multi-million-dollar industry in the Bahamas, there is 1. A closed season from the 1st of April through the 31st of July annually. 2. Minimum catch size of 3 3/8 inches measured at the head or the carapace. 3. Possession of egg-bearing female crawfish. Tripping or removing the eggs from the egg-bearing female is prohibited. And 4. Illegal use of bleach or other poisonous substances and the use of firearms or explosives for fishing is also not allowed. Despite conservation efforts, the Bahamas faces the threat of poachers that often come from other parts of the Caribbean. Persons are still caught fishing out of season and trying to use compressors without valid permits. The Nassau grouper, which is a traditional dish in the Bahamas, is always in high demand. Its meat is used for boiled fish and grouper fingers. This fish provides hundreds of thousands of dollars to the income of local fishermen. In addition to humans, the grouper is eaten by barracudas, lizardfish, dolphin sharks, and other large predators of the coral reefs. When in undisturbed areas, there are equal quantities of males and females. However, in the heavily fished areas, females outnumber the males by 3 to 1. This implies that many eggs are not fertilized during spawning. It is proposed that the following steps be taken to protect and manage the Nassau grouper. 1. Support the closed season for the period December through February each year. Encourage fishermen to catch other species of fish. Establish a minimum size limit for the harvest of the fish and enforce the legal size of 3 pounds. Protect spawning areas. Establish marine parks and reserves to have an area where fishing for grouper is prohibited. Despite these mechanisms, groupers are still being overfished at illegal sizes. The queen conch is also a cultural icon in the Bahamas, and it contributes $4 to $5 million annually. Interestingly, conch numbers in Florida have decreased during overfishing. Since the Bahamas is one of the few viable conch fishery, there is a market to export conch to other parts of the world. However, in recent times, after a number of surveys of conch grounds, conch stocks have been recorded as being on the decline. Therefore, a national campaign has been launched to devise the best practices to ensure that the Bahamas has a sustainable queen conch supply. On the issue of forestry, 31% of the total land area of the planet is covered by forests. Over 1.6 billion people depend on the forest for their livelihood. The forest is home to some 300 million people, and it generates approximately $379 billion in the global trade market. 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity is forest. In the Bahamas, the Forestry Act was enacted in 2010 with drafted regulations to conserve and protect Bahamian forests. The Forestry Unit was established, which aims to devise a national forest plan with forest management plans that will guide protection and management of the forests in the Bahamas. The unit is working hard to develop a small-scale forest-based industry to reduce wood imports. This new venture will bring new concerns so that we ensure that the demand for the timber does not outweigh the protection efforts of the pine forests. Further, we can explore how we shall use our carbon credits. Will it be for economic gain, or will it be utilized responsibly to mitigate climate change and maintain present forests? Besides the lack of human capacity, development of land and clearing large acres of landscape for agricultural purposes are the present challenges faced by conservation in this area. These challenges are slightly different from the past exploitation in the 1700s, where all large-sized hardwood species was felled for logs to be exported. In the 1970s, exploitation of pine forests for pulpwood was also a fad. However, such practices have died over the years. Responsible governance should be the mandate of all governments in the world. When it is guided by an ethic, it can make decisions that are in the best interest for its people economically and environmentally. Once the government does not lose sight of this principle, it will always be the fine protector of the human rights of its people and the protector of other forms of life. Yes, the government will be seen as an environmental steward that is concerned for its people, but is also accountable to a creator that has given life to all. I apologize for not being able to be with you during this time, but I thank you for your attention and focus during the delivery of my presentation. May God bless you all.